In today's class, we'll talk about homework, and we'll talk about one of the questions we get quite frequently about what happens when a student misses a class or two classes, like if they have to go abroad. And while it applies to our school, I think it should apply to schools in general. So let's talk about both of them. They kind of interchanged in terms of how they're related. First question is, do you really need homework? And the short answer is, in elementary school, no, you don't. You can Google Alfie Kohn. You can read about his research, and a lot of it found that the effects of homework on young kids in elementary school is often negative, and they get way too much homework. So negative effects of homework, it increases stress, it could lead to burnout, especially if they go to school from early in the morning till the afternoon, and then go to other classes, or they've got sports, and then they also have homework, meaning they sometimes are busy 12, 13, 14 hours a day, and it leads to burnout in kids in elementary school. It takes away from family time, especially if kids need to do homework or attend other classes and then do homework rather than spend some time with their families. It's also sometimes ineffective in terms of it doesn't lead to better academic achievement, especially in elementary school. At junior and senior high school, the research is a bit different, but I'm focusing purely on elementary school for this video. And often teachers would assign homework for punishment, which I think is a very, very bad thing, or for bonus points or bonuses. And then what sometimes happens is parents that are wealthier can pay tutors to help the kids with their homework. So it just kind of reinforces that idea of inequality. So before I talk about why we give homework, if I don't think homework is necessarily a good thing, we use homework for the same reason that it isn't a problem if you miss a class. If you missed the class where past tense, for example, is introduced for the very, very first time, if it's only introduced in that class and never reviewed again, then that is going to be completely ineffective. And if you've missed the class where it's introduced for the first time, you're going to be exposed to past tense hundreds of times after that. Almost nobody learns past tense the first time it's introduced in a class. So missing a class isn't really a massive issue. The same thing applies to vocabulary. If a word's introduced once or twice in a class and never reviewed, there's no way the students are going to remember it. So the problem isn't that they miss a class and then suddenly they've completely missed out. The same kind of thing even with beginners. If you've missed the class where the teacher introduced the letters B, C, and D, if you never see B, C, and D again, then, well, you're not really doing anything in English. So that brings us to the question, why do we give homework? Now, despite the negatives, there are some positive impacts of homework if it doesn't exceed 10 to 20, maybe 30 minutes a day. So generally, we try to give homework that shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes per class, an hour and a half class. And there is also good, it does show a good impact in relation to learning math, because math does require practice, and language, because you need something called spaced repetition, which means you learn something, there's some space in between, review, space in between review, space in between review, space in between review, until you actually have the item completely mastered. By item, I mean either grammar or vocabulary. So the way we do it in terms of teaching is they the word gets introduced to them, and then in the same class it's reviewed at maybe anything from a 10 to 30 minute interval through one of our stories, and then through the work in the book, whether that be a listening text or a reading or something like that, or speaking. Then they're given homework, and that homework is the second repetition, which is basically, and I'll talk about that in a moment, just recording the word. And then the class after that, that same vocabulary that we did in the lesson before, students read over it again. There's some kind of a game or an activity where they use the vocabulary, and the teacher then focuses on specifically pronunciation of words that are mispronounced, because if you cannot pronounce a word, you're very unlikely to say it, and despite the fact that people think you don't use pronunciation when you read and write, you won't be able to recognize the word, or it will slow you down significantly, and you will avoid writing it if you don't know how to say it, because you'd struggle to spell it. The important thing with homework is that our homework is always supported if it's vocabulary, meaning if there's a list of words, there'll be a recording of the words so students can listen to it. And we do suggest that parents let the kids listen to the words rather than forcing them to say the words without listening to the recording. Keep in mind also, if they say the word wrong, it tells us something that we should work on in the class. So it doesn't matter if the word's recorded wrong. Generally, we have 3 sets of homework. The first thing is recording the vocabulary, which is just a list of words. The second thing, recording something speaking related, like telling a story, or identifying things in the picture, or answering questions, or saying which of the 4 pictures is the odd one out, or asking questions or something like that. Now, with the vocabulary, we're looking at accurate pronunciation. With the stories or any of the other speaking things, we're not looking at grammar, because you can get a very, very good score, actually full marks in a young learner speaking exam with grammatical mistakes. What often happens is if they are overly focused on grammatical accuracy, they lack the 2 things that we look for, which is extent. How much can you say? I don't care if you tell a 4-sentence story that's grammatically perfect. I'd rather have you tell a 12-sentence story that has grammatical mistakes. And then the other thing is the content. Can you talk about things without having to worry about, I forgot to add S on like for likes. In addition to the recording, we also have something called Quizlet, which is a vocabulary practice app that students can use. It's basically a game to review vocabulary. It goes through all the units of our books. And I think the last thing is really just talk about why we give homework in addition to spaced repetition. One, it generates good habits. It exposes them to English outside of the classroom, even if just for 5 or 10 minutes between classes. It means the students are more relaxed when they come to the classroom because they feel like they've prepared. It doesn't have a massive impact actually on how they do in the class, but it makes them feel more relaxed. And hopefully it gets you as the parent involved so that you have the opportunity to see what they're doing. You can help what they're doing, and you can let us know if they are having problems. I'm going to close with, if students have homework, whether it's from us or from school, but specifically from us, that means they're stressed, they don't have family time, or they're not sleeping because they're spending so much time on homework, tell us and we will take it away. The homework is not more important than the kid being healthy, happy and relaxed.